Good afternoon, brethren. I just got the signal from our technical director that we are live from the studio living room of Mr. and Mrs. Blackwell. Thanks for tuning in, brethren. It's a beautiful day today, and I'm hoping every one of you are enjoying the Sabbath day as we are. And so let's get started, and let's all rise, take your hymnals, and let's turn to page 95 and begin services. Oh, give thanks unto our God. Page 95, let's sing out As If You Were Here. Okay, let's get started. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord. Are we okay? 95? Let's start again, brother. Ready? Oh, give thanks unto the God, blessed be his name. His mercy shall always endure, his kindness never fails. Let Israel confess to God, his mercy always shall endure. Let Aaron's household now repeat, that his mercy never fails. I called upon the Lord my God, in distress I cried. He answered me and set me free. Put your confidence in God. With the eternal on my side, why should I fear what man can do? Trust not in princes nor in man, better far to trust in God. All nations compass me about, compass me like bees. He hath in my strength, in his name I cut them off. Open the gates of righteousness, where all the righteous enter in. I shall not die, but I shall live, and shall tell of all his works. Oh, give thanks unto our God, he has answered me. He my salvation has become, he the chief, the cornerstone. He by the builders was refused, he was rejected by his own. God is the Lord who shows us light, blessed be the name of God. Thank you very much, brother. That was good, except for my beginning. Okay, well, let's go to page 73 for the second hymn. We praise thee, O God, our Redeemer. Page 73. We praise thee, O God, our Redeemer, Creator, in grateful devotion our tribute we sing. We lay it before thee, we kneel and adore thee. We bless thy holy name, glad praises we sing. We worship thee, God of our fathers, we bless thee through life's storm and tempest. Our guide hast thou been, when perils o'ertake us, escape thou wilt make us, and with thy help, O Lord, our battles we win. With voices united, our praises we offer to thee, great eternal glad anthems we raise. Thy strong arm will guide forever be praised. Very good, very good. So let's turn now for the third hymn to page 117. Page 117, The Servant's Prayer. Very beautiful song. Page 117. Lord, teach me that I may know of the way where I should go. For to Thee I lift my soul. Set me free from all my foes. Unto Thee I flee to hide Thee. Teach me now Thy will to do. For Thou eternal art my God. Lead me by Thy Spirit good. Bring my soul from trouble, and for Thy name's sake from me. Lead me to the land of refuge, and for Thy mercy's sake. Cut off all Thy foes, destroy them, they which do afflict my soul. O Thou eternal righteous God, for I am Thy servant, Lord. Thank you, brethren. Now to open service with prayer, Mr. Chris Thomas.
Great God Almighty, once again we come before you on your Sabbath, and again so thankful to be here, thankful that you have called us out of this world to show us the right way to live, Father, and to give us the examples and the inspiration that we need, Father, to become more like you and to work towards that path of your kingdom. So we thank you, Father, again for this opportunity. We ask that you would help us to make the most of it, that we come before you humbly, and that we open our ears and our minds, Father, to take in what you would have us, that you would give to us, Father. So we ask your blessing now on the speaking, on the hearing, on the songs, on the broadcast, on everything that is done, Father. We do it in your name, and we ask your blessing on it. And we turn this service into your hands. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
All right, brethren, we'll continue services with Mr. Blackwell and announcements.
Well, good afternoon once again, brethren. Good to be here with all of you once again. I still look forward to the time I can see you as well as you seeing me, and where we'll have all of us will be back together again, hoping in just a very few weeks. You know, we do have to realize that that's our plan right now, but a lot of things can change in the next 3 weeks. They can get better, which we hope is the case, or they can get worse, which we hope doesn't happen. But again, I'd encourage all of you to be very careful still right now, be very cautious. We don't want to take any unnecessary chances because, again, the virus is still out there. We're just mutating and doing some other strange things. But again, we do need to be careful and take advantage of our time to be able to draw closer to God, but if not, we'll go out and risk things and not take any unnecessary chances. Right now, it looks like in 3 weeks we will be able to be back together in all 3 locations. Springfield just changed its thing here recently this week to 25 people at services right now. 3 weeks, that may even be relaxed a little bit more. We hope so. Again, just a reminder, when we do come back together, things are going to be somewhat different. We'll have little small islands around for different families, different groups together, where we're not getting too close. We're able to keep the distancing that is being instructed. So again, those things are coming along, are happening. Again, beautiful day today. Beautiful week all week this week. A little bit nippy, a little bit of rain a couple of times, but that's okay. Rain right now makes the grass grow, makes the trees grow, and makes things even more beautiful. You know, we look at things and we look at creation, we look at God's way God's done things. I was looking out in the middle of the night, one night this week I was awake, thought, man, it looks bright outside, and I looked outside, and a big full moon. And, you know, it's interesting because God set the moon and everything in order. We understand that from the Bible. And that moon comes around exactly every 29 and point something days, almost 30 days. And it looks exactly the same each time. There are once 1 or 2 months in a year that we have 2 full moons, but again, it's rather unusual. So again, I do hope you're enjoying things while you have to stay home and while you have to be kind of laid back. It's a good time to draw closer as a family, a good time to spend time out in nature. And again, you can't walk around out in nature and look at the birds, look at the trees, look at the sky, look at the heavens at night, and have any doubt that there's a God. There has to be a greater power than us to be able to create all of that, and he sustains it by the mere word of his power. You know, you look at the same God scattered the heavens with all the massive solar system, the massive constellations, and everything all over our heavens, as far as we can see, millions and millions of light years apart, the speed of light. And yet that same God in the intricacy designed plants, flowers in the natural nature, not even planted flowers in nature that grow. We saw some a couple of weeks ago that the entire blossom was about like the end of my finger, the first notch of my little finger. And on that one spot, there were at least 100 different perfectly shaped petals and little like bells on it. And again, you look at it, and it's got the Bible says that's like the grass that grows today and is withered tomorrow. And the Bible says, aren't we much more valuable than that? So again, I hope you all remember that. Stay close to God. You know, it's a good time to think about God's kingdom. It is coming. Sometimes it doesn't look like it, but it is coming very, very speedily right now. We look at it, things are moving that direction. So, hey, don't lose track of that. Going on with some local announcements here right now. Again, if you haven't yet completed your festival registration, please do so. A lot of you completed step 1, but not step 2. If you didn't fill out the part that asks for names and ages of everybody, and also the part that asks for volunteer opportunities, where would you like to serve at the feast? If you didn't do those, you still need to go back in and go to step 2 and get all that information in. Because again, it's very helpful to us in planning the feast to be able to know that, to be able to know how many people are coming and what they would like to do to help out in serving at the feast, and be able to do that. So again, if you haven't done that, please do so. Last week was the week for early housing. Hopefully most of you who need early housing and qualify for it have got it made. If not, do so early this week, because later this week we open up general housing in just a little more time, so you have a little more time yet. But they'll be opening up all of it. Now, as far as I know, I checked, and all of our housing in Branson is still okay. Some of them are closed right now and going to be opening up this week. But they did have management there, and people were there taking reservations and doing things. So anyway, hopefully you shouldn't have any problems. If any of you have problems, feel free to send me an email as far as housing, and we'll try to help you get it taken care of. If we look at it, things are coming along very well right now. Mr. Franks talked about the fact of the Holy Day offerings being up, and that's very, very good. Again, things are still moving forward for the church. We do have a number of people that are employed in the hospitality and the airline industries and things like that. So we do have a number of people that are short on hours or without work right now. But again, overall, everybody's doing well. Again, as we look at it, we also see and recognize that God is taking care of us. No problem with that. Speaking of God taking care of us, there are a few people who are in need of God's care right now. I want to mention 2 or 3 prayer requests and have you be praying about people and individuals who are very much in need of God's intervention and prayer. I checked this week. Helen Isaac up in St. Louis, formerly in the Harrison area, still struggling with the bone cancer. She has some good days, has some bad days, but again, she's still struggling a lot with that. Also from the Joplin area, I think I sent this out to most all of you this week, but Valerie Ockert, a member of the Joplin congregation, is suffering from a stomach disease. Her stomach is not functioning, and basically food goes down there and sits until it finally sours enough, and then it comes back up, which isn't very good. She's lost over 80 pounds and is really definitely does not need to lose any more weight. So again, your prayers for her, and that would be appreciative for God to intervene and heal that. They're looking at trying a medication that comes out of Canada that hopefully that will work. But again, she is very much in need of God's healing for that, so she can go on with normal life. Also, down in the Harrison congregation, Wayne and Rhonda Holmes. He's still struggling a lot. He's struggling with the situation with anxiety attacks as well as the physical things he has. So your prayers for God's intervention, helping him to be able to settle down, settle the anxiety attacks, be able to eat and be able to digest food again, would be very greatly appreciated by them, I'm sure. Also, there are other people around. We've mentioned to you before, Warren Tressler, with the breathing difficulty he has. Over in Joplin, Jerry Wright, with the adrenal problem he has, and a number of other people. So again, your prayers for God's people would be very greatly appreciated. Difficulties in this time with the coronavirus pandemic are on everybody, but then you have other trials on top of that. It makes it a whole lot worse. So again, your prayers for everybody be appreciated. I'm hoping we only have 3 more of these before we can be back together live, although we will continue doing it for a little while from the congregation either in Joplin or in Springfield, and to be able to have it for anybody who doesn't feel safe in coming back to services. I do want to say that if you have qualms about coming back to services on the 30th of May, don't worry about it. That's perfectly fine. I don't mean don't worry about the qualms. I mean don't worry about coming back at that point in time. If you feel you need to stay home a few extra weeks, or want to stay home a few extra weeks just to make sure, because you're in a category that might make you extra sensitive to it, feel free to do so, and we'll be more than happy to support you however we can during that time. So anyway, that takes care of the announcements. We'll go ahead and have another congregational hymn, and following that, then we'll have the sermon.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. Just as a little tidbit of information, I was looking at the screen here, and it looks like we have about 20 connections. And we got 5 or 6 of us here, and I don't know how many are out there, but it's quite a number. So let's stay with it, brother, and keep tuning in. Okay, let's take our hymnals and go to another congregational hymn. Let's turn to page 163. Page 163, Be Thou My Vision. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me save that thou art, thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thou presence my life. Be thou my wisdom, and be my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I need not, nor man's empty praise. Thou my inheritance now and always. Thou and thou only are first in my heart. My King in heaven, my treasure thou art. Thank you, brethren. Let's sit down and let's be ready to hear our sermon from Mr. Blackwell.
We're here at the time between the Passover, Days of Unleavened Bread, and the Day Feast of Pentecost, God's second and third festivals. And again, I got thinking about festival versus holidays the other day. And it's interesting that the world has a lot of its holidays. Interestingly enough, most of them come between the time of the end of the Feast of Tabernacles and the days of unleavened bread. There are some that come during the spring and summer, but again, a lot of them are not that way. Again, our calendar has some forms of holidays almost every week or every month. We've had, so far this year, Black Heritage Month. We've had Library Day. We've had several other days of special. Again, this past week, we had VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, remembering the Second World War. A few weeks ago, we had Easter. Memorial Day is coming up just around the corner. A day of memorial this was originally done, memorial of people who died in the Civil War and in the First World War. And again, following that, we have Columbus Day, we have Halloween, we have 4th of July, we have Veterans Day, we have Thanksgiving Day, and we have Christmas and New Year's, and we start all over again. Many of these days have a wrong origin, and we don't celebrate them for obvious reasons. 4th of July is the independence of our nation. We can celebrate that without any problem. But again, a lot of them have a pagan religious background. Now, tomorrow we have a holiday coming up. And again, I feel that we need to do more than once a year. Again, every year we have 2 special days dedicated to parents. There is Mother's Day tomorrow, and a little over a month we're coming up with Father's Day. Again, these are days that our nation has set aside to honor the job of the father and the mother. The job of father and mother are the 2 highest callings we could have in this physical life. I don't know if you ever thought about that. The job of being a father or a mother are the 2 highest callings you could have in this physical life. Why? Well, because you have a chance to bear from your own bodies offspring, sons, daughters, and then God gives you the opportunity / responsibility, depending on how you look at it. God gives you the opportunity to work with and to help groom and help teach and help train those young minds up to the point where they can be called by God and become part of His family. It's a fantastic, wonderful blessing, and one I think sometimes that people take for granted. Again, we look at it, and our physical family is a type of God's family. And God's family is the most important thing to Him in the universe. His sons and His daughters, His family that He's creating. We have an opportunity as physical parents in a physical life to learn about God and how He thinks and operates by our own families. I remember when my children were growing up, they were both basically what I'd call good kids. But occasionally they would do something. And my mom grew up on a chicken farm, on a farm in Oklahoma. Not just chicken, a farm in Oklahoma. And she had a statement that she'd learned from her dad way, way back about dealing with kids. Sometimes I feel like just pinching their head off. You know, you do that with chickens. Of course, she didn't mean it, but she realized sometimes I get frustrated. You know, parenting is a job that sometimes you get frustrated. Sometimes you feel the great blessings. Sometimes you get tired. But again, it's kind of like what's going on in God's family. I have an idea. You know, looking at God, I have an idea. Sometimes, not literally, but sometimes He gets frustrated a little bit. Sometimes I feel like just, you know. In fact, He said that at one point in time to one of His individuals back, didn't He? He said, Moses, leave me alone that I can get really thoroughly ticked off at him, and I'll raise up of you a great nation. Sometimes I think we probably try God and challenge God. Sometimes our children try and challenge us. But again, it's one of the most fantastic blessings that a person could have. Now, unfortunately, for the traditional family with one father and one mother is quickly becoming a thing of the past. We have today blended families, one-parent families, which is the fastest growing part of our society, generally that one parent being a mother. We also have families where the mother decides, I don't want any children, and since it's my body, I'll do whatever I want to, and I'll just abort the unborn baby. It is already a baby, no mistake about that. But I will abort the unborn baby. And again, we go beyond that. Today we have families where there are two fathers or two mothers raising a child or children. Those are all anomalies and not what God intended, not what God wants. Now, as time goes on much longer, we won't know what a true normal family looks like. I remember one time back in Ohio, we had just down the street from us a family where the mother and the father got divorced. They had children. Now, we understand God says he hates divorce. It happens, but God doesn't like it. God hates divorce. Sometimes we're left without a choice in the matter because, again, it takes two to make a marriage go. But in this particular case, had I been able to, I would have given the judge a medal because the judge did something I'd never heard of before. The judge said, okay, you two want a divorce, you two can't get along, fine. I'll grant the divorce, but the kids stay in the house. Mom, you move in for 6 months and you move out, and Dad, you move in for 6 months. The kids didn't cause this, and I'm not going to cause them to have to change schools and change systems and everything else every year just in order to make people happy. I felt like cheering when I heard it. You don't hear much of that. Most people, if it's an inconvenience to you, we don't want to inconvenience you. I'm sure moving in and out every 6 months was a bit of an inconvenience. But on the other hand, I think it was very, very appropriate under the circumstances. Now, you look at it, and it's interesting that the very first instruction our Father in heaven gave, the very first instruction he gave after he created the man and the woman, was what? What's the very first instruction he gave? Be fruitful and multiply. Have a family. Family, brethren, is paramount to God. Family is the number one thing in his mind, his family, and his growing family. He gives us the opportunity to learn about it. So the very first thing he said, be fruitful and multiply. Have a family. Make a family. Now, in doing so, he knew not only that they would be showing physically what he's doing spiritually and doing it in a bigger way, but they would also learn a whole lot about what he's like and how he thinks and how he views things. Because they would learn very quickly when you've got a 7-pound, 5-ounce bundle of wah, your time is no longer yours. You become a servant. And you learn your hours. You don't have the same hours you used to have. And that's fine. You learn to sacrifice. You learn to give. You learn to think about the other person. What's wrong with all those things? Not a thing. Today, though, however, we have a lot of people that, I don't want to be bothered. I can't be bothered by having children. That person not only needs an opportunity to have children, but they need to also have a little bit of a brain surgery where some other stuff has been put in the brain. But again, we look at it. And as we look at it, the very first thing, be fruitful and multiply. Family is central to the plan of God. Central. He's building his own family. And again, he was concerned that that right relationship and approach of the family would be there. He then turned out and gave the father and mother 2 sons. Now, after that, they had daughters and others, but gave them 2 sons, apparently, to start out with. That's what we find. And again, he was concerned about how they dealt. Respect and honor. Respect and honor. In fact, when the 2 sons grew up, we find that one of them honored God in the right way. The other one took it lightly. And when that happens, turn around the flip side of that coin, it says God had respect to the one who did it right, the one who honored God. The one who looked at God and said, hey, this is how God says do it, so this is how I want to do it. That's foreign today. That's foreign today. Today we say, oh, God's just so concerned. God will just be happy with every little bitty thing I do for him. He's not really that concerned. Now, God's very concerned. God does everything very, very exactly. You think God's not concerned about detail? Just again, go out in creation right now at this time of the year. Look around. Look around. How did God come up with the idea of human beings breathing oxygen and animals breathing oxygen? But how do you take care of that? If everything's breathing oxygen and blowing out carbon dioxide, pretty soon the atmosphere becomes much fuller with carbon dioxide. So God says, I got an idea. I'll make all the plants breathe carbon dioxide and give off oxygen. So we basically have pretty much a equal turnaround. Now, God's very attention to detail. And God's very much concerned about families. God's very much concerned about his sons and his daughters. As we look at it, again, in watching man, the importance of honor and respect set in. You know, God set the stage for man's relationship with God, his mate, his parents, and with all mankind. God says, I want honor and respect, not only for me, but I want honor and respect for the parents, for the husband and wife, and all other mankind. The title of my sermon today is Honor Parents and Others. Honor parents, but honor parents and others. And again, we're going to look at the subject today. You know, when God gave his law to man, he did something very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Because family makes up the basis for society. When family gave his law, it says, okay, you want to be happy, you want to be successful? Here's how. He gave him 10 commandments, 10, number of completeness. Didn't need more than 10. Didn't want less than 10. He gave 10 commandments. Of those, the first part talk about how to honor God and how to obey God and how to show honor to God. The last ones talk about how to get along with your fellow man and how to honor your fellow man and have a successful life with your fellow man. Smack dab in the middle, point number 5 of the 10 commandments. God gave an interesting law. Right in the middle, after he told about how to honor and obey him, he put a specific law about family. Family. He said, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long on the earth. Interestingly, he says that having a proper honor and respect, obedience and showing respect, will help bring a long, happy, prosperous, productive life here on earth. Let's look at that passage in Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12, as we start out here. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Exodus chapter 20. Interesting enough, he's just finished one of the commandment on the Sabbath. About Sabbath is a day of rest to help draw you close to God. It's a day set aside by God to dedicate to him, to draw close to him, to have that relationship with him. Right after he talks about that relationship with him and drawing close to him on the Sabbath day and what we do on it, he turns around and says, honor your father and your mother, verse 12, that your days may be long upon the land, notice which the Lord your God is giving. He said, I'm giving you the blessings, and I want you to be able to enjoy it. I want you to be able to appreciate it. I want you to be able to make the most out of it. If you want to make the most out of my blessings, show honor. Develop the society. Develop family, which is the basic building block of society. Develop your family and your society based on honor and respect. Look around today. What happened to honor and respect? Our radio, our TV is full of ridicule, it's full of criticism, it's full of calling leaders by names, of people not having any honor or respect. Parents not having any honor or respect for their unborn children by having them be aborted, either before or even at birth. Where's the honor and the respect? Where's the approach? What happened to it? You know, again, he looked at it, and our nation has set aside a day to honor and respect our parents. one tomorrow and one in the latter part of the month of June, a month later. How long will those continue? How long will those continue? After all, father and mother are probably pretty soon going to be translated as being bigoted. Being bigoted and narrow-minded. You say a father and a mother. Well, you are offending a sizable portion of our society today. No, I'm not offending. I'm simply quoting what God says. Simply quoting the Bible, what it says. But again, thankfully, that time hasn't come yet. Thankfully, we still have the opportunity to look at, to honor our father and mother, and frankly, to learn from it, to honor others. The word honor means to consider weighty, not as far as body size, but as far as importance. To consider weighty, to consider of high value. How high a value do you place on your father and your mother? How high a value do you place on your children? To esteem or hold in high esteem. It means literally to hold up a person almost in awe. In that way, the greatest honor has to go to our Father in heaven. Honor your father and your mother. We honor our spiritual father. That's where it begins. That's where it begins. You know, a person who honors his spiritual father will have an easier time honoring his physical father and mother. And on the other side of that, a person who honors his father and mother, lived physically, will have an easier time honoring God and also honoring others, period. You know, it's not a suggestion. It's a commandment from God. This basic concept was taught in the family for most of all time down from history. Beginning of history until about the middle of the last century. About the middle of the last century, things had changed. But things were changing over a period of time. The change in the structure of family actually began back in the 19th century. With the wars, with the Industrial Revolution, families were separated. Fathers were out. Children were sometimes assigned as workers to help out and help pay the bills, help support the family. Mothers stayed home with the younger children. Things continued that way for a while. Toward the middle of the last century, about 1935, we find that a lot of the women started going out, especially during the Second World War. The men were all drafted, went to war. The ladies, and many of them had to go out of the home. Began what's called latchkey kids all the way back then. To begin with, most of them, in all honesty, stayed with family. But as times went on, the job of career, the job of, quote, my fulfillment, began to override, in many cases, the importance of family. Began to override, in many cases, the job, the most wonderful opportunity that two people can have called mom and dad. Now, I realize in our society today, some people have no choice but to work. That's not an issue. But the whole concept of what happened in society is a major issue. And again, the family division became worse and worse as time went on. It wasn't always that way. Let's look at Leviticus chapter 19. Leviticus, the 19th chapter. Again, this is talking about God's law as he gave it to ancient Israel. Leviticus chapter 19. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 3, says, every one of you shall revere his mother and his father, and keep my Sabbaths. I'm the Lord your God. Interestingly, right here again, he connects it up together. In the Ten Commandments is Sabbath first, and in family. Here he says, you shall revere your father and mother, and keep my Sabbaths. They're on an equal plane. You know, you can't do 9 and not do 10. You can't do 5 and not do 10. You know, you got to do all 10. You know, everyone is to revere, to stand in awe of his father and mother. It means to stand in reverence, recognizing the power and the position of that person. Granted, God gave them that. But again, God gave them that for our benefit as we look at it. Again, it means to render to a person their proper respect. And interestingly, it doesn't depend on their being totally honorable. That poses a problem for some people, I understand. Sometimes that honor and respect has to be from a little bit longer, further distance. But still, that doesn't relieve the opportunity, the responsibility of honor and respect. Again, we look at it, and it's based on their responsibilities and their job of bringing us into the world and providing and training us. Now, it goes on beyond that. Let's look down the same chapter here, down to verse 32. It says, "You shall rise before the gray-headed and honor the presence of an old man and fear your God." Again, another interesting. You honor that and fear your God. Though those two are tied together. Showing honor and rising and honor and showing honor to even to the older elderly is equated with fearing your God. Because they're created by God, and the older people, especially the elderly, the widows, are very special in God's sight. And as we look at it, again, it's a show of respect and honor. Now, in the past, it was unheard of for children to refer to adults by their first name. Now, I realize, frankly, today, sometimes this is done by adults. They'll say, "Well, I don't want you to call me Mr. and Mrs. That makes me seem old. Just call me Bolivar. Or just call me Samantha." I had to do a real quick think right there to make sure I wasn't even calling someone by name in my congregations. But anyway, but as you look at it, that's a problem, because again, there's a responsibility of learning, honor, and respect. Again, it doesn't depend on anything else. You look at it, well, it's always Mr. or Mrs., sometimes grandma or grandpa or uncle or aunt, or another title of respect. And I'm an advocate of still doing that where possible. Again, it's interesting that when a child is not taught to respect adults in the home, he has a much greater problem respecting the boss, respecting leaders in the community, respecting God. And have trouble respecting them in a social society, it's more difficult to do it in a spiritual environment. Honor and respect begin in the home and go on from there. Let's go on to Deuteronomy 5. This is the same commandment we read earlier, but Deuteronomy chapter 5. Because there's something added here. Interesting. Deuteronomy chapter 5. And verse 16 says, "Honor your father and your mother as the Lord your God has commanded you." Again, it's not an option, it's a commandment. "As the Lord your God has commanded you, that your days may be long, and that it may be well with you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you." May long and may be well. The things will go well. You know, the family is the linchpin of society. And honor and respect in a proper way are the linchpin of the family. Love, concern, honor, respect for the linchpin of the family, then that is the linchpin of society. So when family begins to go down, we find that society goes down. Society goes down. Now, again, proper respect to parents may at times involve immeasurable hardship. May be tough, but you know what? The duty remains. Duty remains. That's not taught today. There is no position of honor in today's society. Not even the president. Look what goes on. The attitude people have, people talk about, people say things. Because that your days may be long. Again, honoring one's parents will be rewarded. Honoring one's parents is rewarded by God with happiness and blessing. The Sansino Jewish commentary says, interestingly, this has not always been in the life of the individual, but the commandment is addressed to the individual as a member of society. The home is infinitely more important to a people than the school, the professions, or the political life. Again, very, very important. It goes on, family's respect is the ground of national permanence and prosperity. When that respect goes, when the family disintegrates, society disintegrates. Family respect goes a two-way street. You know, Sansino adds here, he says, The latter, as you may belong, the latter stresses the truth that a sound national life only results from a sound family life within the nation. A sound national life only results from a sound family life. What's happening today? Family life is going to the dogs, so is our nation. You look at it. And again, this helps us explain why there is not much respect in our country today. It was never learned. It was never learned growing up. So everyone feels free to ridicule, put down, malign anybody. Doesn't matter who they are, those in authority, from the president, mom, dad, leaders of business, everything. People just cast it all off. They cast it all off. You know, all of God's laws have a physical as well as a spiritual intent, don't they? Just as we're teaching our children to honor the physical parents, we're also to learn to honor our spiritual father. We learn to honor our spiritual father by the way we live our lives, and our spiritual mother, the church. Again, if we don't accomplish that, we won't even experience it in a spiritual way. You know, the overturn and fragmentation of the family was foretold by God a long time ago. Foretold by God in the Old Testament and the New Testament. You know, God could see what was going to happen based on the origin of man and woman. It began all the way back when Adam and Eve rejected God as their spiritual mother. Well, we don't care. We don't want to obey you. We don't have to obey you. We can go out and decide for ourselves. Yeah, I had a good friend one time. He said he was so sick and tired of being under authority, when he turned 18, he was going to take off and leave home and join the Marines. I think he had a little bit of a rude awakening. In fact, I know he did. He grew from it, but he had a rather rude awakening. Let's look at Isaiah chapter 3. Isaiah chapter 3, verse 12. Isaiah chapter 3, verse 12. Isaiah chapter 3. Verse 12, we're all familiar with this. We've been around very long. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. Children are my oppressors. Notice, oh my people, those who lead you cause you to err and destroy the way of your paths. These things aren't taught today very much. Because after all, you're your own person. Nobody can tell you what's right for you. Nobody can tell you how you ought to be because you're different. You're your own person. You got to decide for yourself what's right and wrong. And by the way, if you die in the process, well, I'm sorry. But you got to decide for yourself what's right and wrong. Nobody has a right to tell you anything. Again, children are going to be the oppressors. Man has rejected the path to joy and success and has reaped the whirlwind as a result. What we've reaped as a result is horrible. Let's look over in Romans chapter 1, verse 31. Romans chapter 1, verse 31. We come down about 800 years from the time of Isaiah writing. The Apostle Paul writing to the Roman church, Romans chapter 1. And verse 31, Paul's talking here about what it's going to be like. Undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful. You know, again, he talks about the whole attitude here. You know, unloving, unable to do the right thing. Verse 30 says, disobedient to parents. That's a society. He's talking about society there, not an individual. Disobedient to parents, unloving. You know, without natural affection. You know, this doesn't mean agape love. The natural affection, he's talking about just the normal love that comes out of a family. You want to look at it from one point, he's talking about the same attitude, on it, except with human, talking about the same attitude that makes a mother bird coddle and take care of the chicks. Same time, they said, that concern's not even there. And if you look at parents today, how many parents abandon children? How many parents just run off and leave them? How many abort them? How many allow them to die or kill them without natural affection? Without natural affection. I look at a newborn baby and I got to love them every time I see them. Now don't ask me if I think they're beautiful, because some of them are really frankly ugly to begin with. They haven't gotten their own natural form back yet. But on the other hand, you look at it, and how can you be hardened and cruel about a newborn baby? Or a life that's developing inside your body. And that's an inconvenience. I want to get rid of it. It's a sick society, brethren, that's getting sicker. Sick society that's getting sicker. But again, we look at it without natural affection and concern for others. One result, abortion. Another is breakup of the families. Paul adds a little bit more. Let's go over in 2 Timothy chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3. Verse 1 says, "This know in the last days perilous times will come." Let's skip down to verse 3 now. Talking about what people are going to be like. "Unloving, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, high-minded, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God." Again, he talks about, without natural affection. And you look at it, and that means without what would even be natural in life. What would even be natural in life for someone who didn't know anything about God's way? So, again, man has rejected the approach for the last 75 years or so. And we've got generations now of young people coming up who are more and more consumed with themselves, more and more interested in looking to others their own age for advice, and turning away from the older people. I saw an interesting T-shirt. I wish I'd bought it now looking back. But you look at it, and on the T-shirt it says, "Just when I finally learned a lot of the answers, now nobody will ask me the questions." Now I'm too old, they won't ask me, "Well, he's old, he won't be able to help you." Or "She's old." I remember the time in the church. It's been years ago. I remember the time in the church when a lot of the young women and even the young high school girls would crowd around some of the older widows just to pick their brain and to learn things. Learn what things were like. And to learn how did you deal with this thing? How did you deal with this thing? I got a baby that has colic. So rather than ask a lady in the church who's had 4 of them, immediately we run to Google. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to go to Google, but again, you've got experts right there in many cases on simple things like this. But again, we don't think about going there. We don't think about going there. Man has rejected the approach in the last 75 years. Their desires, concerns, and less loving and caring for parents or for anybody else but themselves. Tomorrow's Mother's Day. Tomorrow's a day to honor and respect and show love and consideration for our mothers. Now, I realize right now in this pandemic it may be hard to do certain things. But you know what? A call, if you're not with them. A call. A note. If you are with them, a hug. Oh, we're not supposed to. Hey, that hugging doesn't apply in close families if you're together anyway. Saying, "I love you, and I appreciate you very much." It seems that mothers always played an important part in the lives of those God used. Stop and think about it down through time. Stop and think about it down through time. You go all the way back to Rachel and Jacob. Go on down to Moses' mother, Jochebed. Then come down to Samuel's mother. You go on down. On down. You go down various of the kings. Jeremiah. Again, Christ's mother. James and John's mother. Peter's mother-in-law. They played an important part. You know, a good, faithful mother was a vital part of the plan of God. Spiritually speaking, you can take that forward, can't you? A good, faithful church as the mother is a vital part of a Christian life and of the growth and a helping grow. Now, again, there are many ways that the early compass was the mother. The early childhood compass was the mother. Dad is important too. I'm not underestimating the dad's importance. They were similar and yet different roles. They were similar and yet different roles. I loved my dad very, very much, and I loved my mom very, very much. They both played a different role in my life. They both played a different role in my life. And very seldom, when I had fallen, skinned my knee, messed up something, did I go crying to Dad. I went crying to Mom. On the other hand, when I got in a jam and needed help to get out of certain things, I went to my dad, not my mom. And, you know, we learn lessons from both. They're both vital. And again, God gave us both. That's the reason you don't have one or the other. But, again, dads tend to set the compass and leads on toward the trail of adulthood, more so than the young child. A lot of dads are still get kind of nervous even after 2 or 3 when they get plopped around and have to spend a lot of time with preschoolers. I never cease to be amazed how moms can always lovingly answer, "Why? Why? Why?" After about 10 times, they'll say, "Because I said to," you know, or "because that's the way it is," you know. And again, it's just a different part we play. Let's consider some important ways and facts about honoring our parents and grandparents. Then I want to expand the sermon for the last little bit to discuss some facts about honoring others as God commands. You know, we as Christians should set a sterling example and be a light to this area in a darkening world. So, how can you show honor to parents? First off, the point, realize honor and respect are not merely things you give. You can give flowers, you can give candy, you can give a new purse, you can give a number of things. You can give a fishing pole to Dad, you can give whatever. But again, honor and respect are not merely things. Honor and respect are a whole approach and mindset. An approach and mindset in the way we deal with them. We still hold them up. You know, some in the world, and even in the church for that matter, provide a lot of things for parents, but they don't develop honor and respect. You know, things don't replace doing. Things don't replace love. Things don't replace the right type of support. Things, if that's all there is, are empty. Excellent book I'd recommend it. It's not a new book. It's been around for quite a long time. It's called The Gift of Honor. The Gift of Honor by Gary Smalley and John Trent. It's an excellent book on showing honor in the family. So again, realize honor means a lot more. Honor is more of what you do in your attitude and approach than just simply sending a card, sending a note. You know, a son sends a note once a year, never contacts Mom the whole rest of the year. Is he really showing honor with a note or with a card? Some sons may not have the money to buy a big gift, but they spend time with Mom. They talk to Mom on the phone, or they spend time together. Which one showed honor? Which one showed respect? The second point here very quickly. Realize honoring parents doesn't end when we reach adulthood and become parents. Honoring parents doesn't end when we reach adulthood and become parents, or even in our old age. You say, well, our parents are already gone. So what? The way you live your life, you are their heritage. You are their heritage. The way you live your life reflects on the family. The way you live your life reflects on them. Now, it doesn't even stop when they're dead, because we still have a responsibility to live a life a certain way. We have a responsibility to put in practice the things that they showed us, put in practice the things that they have given us. You know, as children, we tend to neglect getting with our parents because we're too busy. Life is too busy, brethren. Hopefully one thing this pandemic has taught us is life is too busy, and it doesn't hurt to slow down occasionally. It doesn't hurt to slow down occasionally. We're too busy with our own children. You know, even after they're gone, you're their heritage, and you have to remember them and what they gave you. I remember probably 10 years after my dad died, I was down in my hometown where I grew up, down in East Texas. And I made a point to go by and visit with one of my dad's friends about 10 years after he died. This man, at that point in time, was in his mid-70s. That's not old now, since that's where I am. But he was in his mid-70s. But I went by and spent about an hour and a half talking with him and just laughing with him and talking about what things he and my dad used to do together and some of the things they enjoyed and times I'd been around them as a little kid growing up. And I later got a note back from his wife. She said, "You have no idea how much good that did to knowing that Dean's boy remembered him." You know, again, it didn't hurt me. I enjoyed it, frankly. But why hadn't I done it before that? Why hadn't I done it right after my dad died? Why didn't I do it when my dad was still alive? Well, I was busy. And I realized later, hey, you know what? Some of these things can make a big, big, big difference. They make a big difference. You know, we look at it, and the children hold a responsibility to honor your parents. As they get up in years, their concern is for us still. I worked a lot of years with summer camps, and I had kids say, "Why does won't my mom let me do this?" So you know why? Well, because she's concerned about you. Well, when's she going to get over it? I laughed. I said, never. When she's going to get over it is when she dies, you know. Before that time, she's never going to get over it because you're still her kid. You're still her kid. Again, we look at it. Point number C, you know, realize how we treat our parents and our example will have an influence on how our children will treat us. How we treat our family and our parents will have an influence on how our children treat us. So again, how do you want to be treated? Up to you. But God gives us a command. You know, so again, you look at it, and that sometimes maybe you never saw the love and the mutual respect in the family. That makes it harder. I counseled a young lady one time for baptism, and I was talking to her about that, you know, the love we're supposed to have is the love of a parent for a child. And when we're talking to God, we look at it and we're like we're talking to our Father. And so I never could talk to my dad. I never could talk to my dad. We never had that relationship. And that's too bad. Parents need to learn to talk with their children, spend time together, learn, talk to them, and get there, find out what they're thinking about, find out what they want to do, what they love, what they don't like. The last thing I want to make, and again, this is a little touchy, I realize, for some people, realize how we treat our parents and our example does not depend on whether they're in the church or not. Whether they're in the church or not does not make any difference. Some use the church as an excuse. Well, my mom and dad, my mom gave me a bad time when I came into the church. I'm sorry, that's not good. Doesn't give you an excuse. I'm sorry, my dad disowned me. I'm sorry, too. I'm sorry your dad disowned you. Doesn't give you an excuse. You got a reason, or you got an excuse, but not a reason. You got an excuse, but it doesn't give you a reason. You look at it. You know, you look at them, and we look at things and say, all right, well, they make a big deal out of Christmas and Easter, and I can't get together with them, so we don't get together. Well, hey, invite them to your house for Father's Day. Invite them to your house for Mother's Day. Invite them to your house for the 4th of July celebration. You know, there are times to get together. Now, you can't use religion or even God as an excuse. Many times, again, religion builds a wall between parents and children. Maybe they gave you a bad time, but again, you have to look at it. You have to look at it. Again, we have to realize that, hey, okay, I've had people say, well, I can't go to the family reunion because of timing, so therefore I never get together with family. Hey, you know what? You can make time. You may not be able to make it one year, but if you plan it next year, you can make time for it. It's just got to be there. It's got to be something that we do. It's got to be something we look at. Now, again, we need to make sure we keep in touch with our parents as they get older. Keep in touch with your parents as they get older. As a pastor, over the years, I've spent a lot of time in nursing homes. I spent a lot of time in nursing homes, visiting with elderly people who were in a nursing home. And, frankly, most of them because they had to be. There was no other choice at that point in time, but some of them were a choice. Some of it was an inconvenience, so they ended up there. In a few cases, they wanted to be there. But if they wanted to be there, I asked, would they really wanted to be there had the family situation been what it should be? I don't know. I'm not judging anybody on that. But I look at it. And you need to stay in touch with them. Phone calls, letters, etc. You know, just let them know, hey, you care on a regular basis. Let them know you care on a regular basis. Too often we get our own family, we spend too much time calling and talking to them. You know, remember the importance of personal visits, face-to-face visits. Face-to-face visits. I've gone to nursing homes and there are people there who are just looking at people, just trying to find somebody they know, somebody that will talk to them. Now, I got myself in trouble a couple of times because I remember here in the Missouri area, and we go up, and I stopped this one lady who was just like, oh, my, oh, she was just. So I stopped and said hello to her, and I made the mistake of sticking out my hand and shaking hands with her. I ended up almost dragging her in her wheelchair half the way down the hall to the nurse's station to get them to help her let go of me, you know. But again, you look at it, and did it hurt me? No, not so as you'd recognize anyway. So, again, look at it, and again, realize, hey, parents are very, very important. Very, very important. And again, what we do may not be noticed right now, but what we do, God doesn't forget. God knows how we treat our family. God knows how we treat other folks. You never forget the importance of showing honor and respect to parents. But parents aren't the only ones we should honor and respect. Parents aren't the only ones we should honor and respect. Let's look at a few other things here. And again, we find that Paul says in Romans chapter 13, an interesting statement here. Romans chapter 13. Romans chapter 13, beginning to read in verse 7, we find very interestingly here, Romans 13, verse 7, it says, render therefore to all their due, taxes to whom taxes, custom to whom customs, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Honor to whom honor. As owe no man anything except to love one another. You know, honor to whom honor. In other words, besides our parents, we're to honor, surprisingly, everyone. Everyone. All honor belongs to God. We already talked about that. God is the one who all honor belongs to. God is the one who is the ultimate designer, the ultimate creator, the ultimate finisher of the faith. He deserves honor above all. We find David in the book of Psalms has several spots where he talks about honor. Psalm 145, verse 5, he says, we stand in awe of you and your power. You know, you go outside, this time of the year we talked about earlier, go outside. You can't help but stand in awe of God's power. Go outside during a thunderstorm or a lightning storm when it's literally shaking the ground. And that lightning bolts come down and you look, man, that's fearsome. But you know, every time those lightning bolts hit the ground, they re-fertilize the ground with nitrogen, life-giving nitrogen. Even that, God's got it all designed out. God doesn't miss a lick. Yet we can look at God's great power and God's majesty. And in it we see a loving God. All honor goes to God. He's the most honorable being in the entire universe. But parents are to respect their children as well. God honors and respects his children. It says God gives honor to those who follow him. God gives honor to his sons and daughters. Do we show honor to our children? Do we show honor to our children, even in spite of their boneheaded moves at times? You know, we should go to the same, be that way with our children. Do we treat them with respect and hold them up, or do we put them down and belittle them at times? Do we encourage them, or do we put them down? You know, human nature is totally self-centered. Human nature is interested in what benefits me. To honor a person requires a large degree of humility. I'll repeat that. To honor a person requires a large degree of humility. You reckon that might help explain why there's so little honor in our political system, in our governing system today? You know, people are totally into their own thing and totally concerned with what they want. Doesn't matter what's right, doesn't matter what anyone else wants, it's what I want. You know, and my feeling, as we heard in the sermon this morning, my feeling is as important as anybody else's or more important than anybody else's. So therefore, you know, this is what I'm going to do. But again, you look at it, and we need to honor a person, and we have to have a certain amount of humility, especially to honor our children, honor others. And let's look at John chapter 5. An interesting comment here, John chapter 5. John, the 5th chapter. A very interesting comment about how God does. John chapter 5. John chapter 5. Verses 22 and 23. It says, "For the Father judges no one but the Son, but he has committed judgment to the Son." Notice, "And all should honor the Son just as they honor the Father." All should honor the Son just as they honor the Father. "He who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him." You know, Christ said, you know, "Father, I want to be back in the position of honor I was with before you, before the world began." You know, God had honor to his Son. God respected his Son. You know, honor and respect are a two-way street. If you want to get it, you have to give it. If you want to have respect, you got to show respect. You know, I've seen a few examples of that showing respect during this corona pandemic. You know, I actually heard the governor of New York make a very positive comment about the president. Of course, the next day he made about 10 negative ones, but, you know, at least, you know, but again, you look at it. And again, showing honor and respect is very, very important. God honors and we're supposed to honor as well. You know, God also commands us to honor our spouse. Now, I'm going to take my shoes off here so I can tread kind of lightly on this one. But something we need to look at. 1 Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter chapter 3. First Peter chapter 3. Verses 5 to 7 to begin. We're going to go back and pick up another earlier verse here in a minute. But verse 5 says, "For in the manner of his former times the holy women who trusted in God also adorned themselves, being submissive to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord." Again, that doesn't mean I'm totally in charge of it. Lord, there is a response, a statement for honor. Someone I honor and I respect. Lord, I honor and I respect you. He held him in high esteem. So, again, she says, I mean, all right, yeah, look at this, But this is for both men and women. I'll read verse 7. "Husbands likewise dwell with them with understanding." And realize the situation you have. Understand what marriage is about. You know, if I have a bone to pick with most husbands is that they don't spend enough time focusing on and understanding what marriage is all about and understanding the feelings of their wife and the way women react, the way women operate and function. You know, you go to the old movie My Fair Lady. Why can't women be more like men? Well, because God didn't make them that way. Surprise. And you know what? I, for one, I'm saying hip, hip, hooray, he didn't. Hip, hip, hooray that he didn't. You know, I can have friends that think like I do, but I wouldn't want to live with one of them my whole life, you know. And going on here, it says, understanding, giving honor to the wife, holding her up and holding her in high esteem, considering her worthy of standing in awe in some ways in the right way, giving honor to the wife as unto the weaker vessel. Now, again, that doesn't mean worthless, doesn't mean that she's not as strong as men are. The word weaker there has to do with tensile strength. Tensile strength. Women, health-wise and physical body-wise, are not built quite the same way as men. And God made that design too. But again, the man is to give honor to his wife. Again, if homes in the U.S. had more of this approach of honor and mutual respect and standing in awe of each other in a proper way, there wouldn't be nearly as many unhappy, divided homes in America. This is an injunction from God not to be taken lightly. Both are mentioned here because both are vital to a loving marriage. And one will lead to the other. Honor and respect lead to a happy, vitalized marriage. Again, how much honor is there in your home? How much honor is there in your home? Again, that'll be a factor in our success or failure as a family of God, as a whole church. You know, we have to look at, okay, is it there? How do we deal with it? How do we work with each other? How are we doing? Are we doing okay with it? You know, are we doing okay with it? Let's go on here and look at Proverbs chapter 31. Proverbs 31. Husband's got a question for you on this one. Proverbs chapter 31. Proverbs chapter 31, verse 29. Proverbs 31 is called the Virtuous Woman chapter. Verse 29 says, many daughters have done well, but you exceed them all. When was the last time you talked that way to your wife? When was the last time you praised what she's doing and really appreciate it and really what a fine job she's doing? You know, it leads to reciprocal actions on the part of the wife. If you know what you're doing is appreciated, you're more intent on doing it more. If you know what you're doing is not appreciated, you say, well, hang it, do it yourself in your mind. Now, again, we could go to Ephesians chapter 5, which says, wives, submit to your husbands as unto the Lord. That's a question for you, wives. As far as showing honor and respect, do you show honor and respect to your husband anywhere near the honor and respect you show to Jesus Christ? What if you were married to Jesus Christ? How would you respond? If not, what would it help you to do so? Husbands, do you sacrifice and give yourself for your wife as Christ gave himself for the church? Again, you look at it. You know, why not discuss it with each other? You know, honor is the basic underpinning of a happy marriage. You know, honor goes beyond that, brethren. Honor goes beyond that. Let's look at 1 Timothy chapter 5. 1 Timothy chapter 5 is an interesting chapter because it talks about honor in several different respects. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 3 says, honor widows who are really widows. You know, honor widows who are really widows. You know, again, note the widows among you and give them a special honor and respect. Look at them and look at their accomplishments. Look at what they can contribute, and seek their advice on things. You know, seek their advice on things. I've found almost everywhere I've been that there are elderly ladies that I have asked questions of and kind of got a lot of good input back from. Because in case you hadn't figured it out after all the time I've been here, I don't have all the answers. I'm still learning the questions. But again, hey, we can all learn and we can grow. There's a lot we can learn from them. We just have to ask. Just have to ask. You know, Paul tells us that the younger women should learn from the older women. Now, you're not going to do that if you don't discuss things and ask them about it. Because most older women have been around long enough, they're not going to come up and just dump on you. Who else is worthy of honor? Let's look at verse 7 here in the same chapter. Chapter 5, verse 7. It says, these things I command that they may be blameless. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 7. He goes on talking about, again, talking about other situations here that you look at it, and he even talks about the fact that, again, we need to be honoring the ministry. Honoring the ministry. And he goes on and talks about verse chapter. Let's see if it's the same chapter here now. Verse 1. So do not rebuke an older man, but exhort him as a father, younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, younger women as sisters with purity. Again, we're to honor our brothers and sisters in the church and the family of God. Now, we can go on beyond that. Paul tells us in Romans chapter 13 that we're even to honor the king. Honor the national leaders over us. Honor the national leaders. Our national leaders. That's almost unheard of today in our divided society. You know, I get so tired I don't even watch much network news anymore, even whether CNN, Fox, or AM, because all they're doing is siding and getting all of them. We're doing this way and everybody else is bad. And again, we look at it, and we got to ask a question. You know, where's the honor and the respect? Where's the honor and the respect that used to be there? Honor is fast disappearing. We need to bring back honor in the families and individual lives as well. Going back one more past Paul sums in 1 Peter chapter 2. 1 Peter chapter 2. 1 Peter chapter 2. Peter kind of sums it up here. 1 Peter chapter 2. Peter sums up the whole thing of it here. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 17. Here's the bottom line, brethren, what I'm talking about today. Honor all people, show honor and respect, and stand, in one sense, hold them up as people of importance. He goes on, love the brethren, fear God, and honor the king. You know, honor those who are over you, honor those who are beside you, honor our parents, honor our children. Again, how well do we do that? Where does it need propping up in our lives? Are there areas that we need to have propped up? Are we setting the example for the next generation as far as their attitude toward honor and respect? You know, a child who grows up honoring his parents won't have trouble honoring the laws of the land and honoring the officials. You know, I notice, probably because of my age sometimes, but I'll be talking to people and they'll say, thank you, sir, or sir. And it makes me feel good. It doesn't make me feel about time they recognize it. What it actually makes me feel like is, you know what? I'll bet that person grew up in a family that had respect. I bet that person grew up in a family that held each other in honor and a positive family. Maybe not, but I bet in most cases it did because they learned it. They learned it and they still exercise it. They still exercise it. Again, going back to the beginning, tomorrow is a very special day to honor mothers among us and also around the world. You know, being a mother, work never gets finished. Being a good mother is a tremendous amount of work. You know, it's also a tremendous calling and a wonderful blessing. A mother's work is never finished. She remains an influence and a stabilizing factor throughout the life. Doesn't matter how old her kids get, they still have her. Fathers have a similar yet different role. Again, next month we have a day to honor them. So this afternoon in closing, mothers, I salute you. You're a mainstay in the Church of God. I wonder how many families would be around if it weren't for the mothers and fathers who have stayed faithful down through the years. Keep up the wonderful job. Keep at it, preparing the next generation and the one after that for God to call and use. Have a wonderful Mother's Day. We appreciate all of you, love you, and honor all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. Well, brethren, let's take our hymnals and stand as we close services with another song and a prayer. And we just ask that you'll join in to the end and don't leave us. Thank you very much, Mr. Blackwell. So let's get started. Okay. Oh, did I give the page? I guess I didn't. That's what happens when you're put under pressure. Let's turn to page 41. Page 41, wait and hope and look for God. Envy not, nor fret yourself over evil, lawless men. They like grass soon fade away, and wither like the flower. Trust in the eternal God, do the right and loyal be, so will you dwell peacefully and truly shall be fed. Put your confidence in God and your way to Him commit. He shall give you your desires, the privilege of your heart. Rest in the eternal God, patiently upon Him wait. Envy not, nor fret yourself because of evil men. Cease from anger, cease from wrath, for all such shall be cut off. Wait and hope and look for God, be still and trust in Him. Soon the wicked shall not be, and so shall you delight yourself peace abundantly. Let's bow our heads, brethren. Almighty Father in heaven, we come to you, our great God, knowing that you are worthy of all honor and praise and glory, and you've shown us today how you are and how important honor and is in our lives to give that honor to others. And we just thank you, Father, that you've revealed that to us, and we know doing it causes many other blessings along the way. And we just ask that you'll guide and direct us as we do this and help us to remember this in our lives. Please be with all those of your brethren who are around the world who are going through different trials and difficulties because of the present crisis. We hope and pray that we all are preparing for whatever's to come in our future. We know it can get worse, and we know it probably will. But we hope and pray we're getting ready and preparing for it all. And we just ask that you'll be with us, guide us, influence us throughout the week, and help us to come back wanting and yearning to hear more of your word. Thank you for this day, Father. Thank you for the instruction and guidance we have. We just ask these things and give you the honor and the glory and the praise to you and to your Son, Jesus Christ, whom we pray in his name. Amen.